Country music built its reputation on family values and true love. But behind the spotlights and sold-out shows, some of the biggest stars were living double lives that would shock America. One legend married his own teenage cousin while still married to someone else. Another superstar had secret children with multiple women, including affairs that lasted decades. And one beloved performer was caught in bed with his wife's best friend and secretary. These weren't just mistakes. They were calculated betrayals that destroyed families and ended careers. Jerry Lee Lewis. In May 1958, everything changed for Jerry Lee Lewis the moment he stepped off a plane in London. He was 22, on top of the world, and expected to conquer the UK with his music. But when he casually introduced the girl beside him as his wife, a single reporter named Ray Berry asked one simple question that would destroy his entire career. Who was she? Her name was Myra Gale Brown. She was only 13 years old. And not only that, she was Jerry's first cousin once removed. But it got even worse. Jerry was still married to his second wife, Jane Mitchum, when he married Myra in December 1957. That made the marriage not just disturbing, but illegal. At first, the press thought she was 15. Then they found out she was 13. Then they discovered she was his cousin. Then they realized he hadn't even divorced his last wife. In just 72 hours, it was all over. Radio stations stopped playing his music. His 71-show tour across the UK was cancelled after only 3 performances. Crowds booed him off the stage. His earnings dropped from $10,000 per night to just $250 in tiny bars. Even Sun Records, the label that made him famous, cut off promotion. He was completely abandoned. Back in Britain, the reaction was even more extreme. Since 1929, the legal age to marry had been 16. So, British police questioned Myra directly. They treated it like a case of child abuse, not just a cultural misunderstanding. Jerry claimed that this kind of marriage wasn't unusual in the American South, but no one in the UK was buying it. Despite the public shame, the marriage lasted for 13 years. In 1970, Myra finally filed for divorce. She accused him of abuse and cheating. Later, she said people called her the child, but she felt like the adult in the relationship. The scandal completely ended Jerry Lee Lewis's run as a rock star. He eventually rebuilt a career in country music, but his reputation never fully recovered. Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson's story wasn't about one big moment. It was a slow storm of betrayal and secrets that dragged out over decades. In 1969, his second wife, Shirley Collie, was going through their mail when she opened a hospital bill. That's when she saw something that changed everything. The bill listed a baby girl named Paula Carleen, born to Mrs. Connie Nelson. But Shirley was Mrs. Nelson. So who was Connie? Willie had been cheating on Shirley with a woman named Connie Kupke. And he didn't just cheat, he had a child with her, secretly. Even worse, Shirley had given up her music career to take care of Willie's kids from his first marriage. Now she found out her husband had another woman, another baby, and a whole secret life he never told her about. When she confronted him, Willie tried to act like it was no big deal. He said he just went to the hospital for something minor. But the paperwork made it clear. It was the birth of his daughter. Willie couldn't deny it. His own daughter Lana, from his first marriage, said she found out the exact same way. Nobody knew about Connie. Nobody knew about the baby. The hospital bill told everyone at once, and it didn't stop there. In 2012, when Willie was 79 years old, another truth came out. He had another daughter. Her name was Renee, and she was born in 1953, during his very first marriage. Her mother was Mary Haney, a close friend of his. The affair had stayed hidden for 59 years. Even Willie admitted that he made a mess of things when it came to love. He said, "I had a gift for complicating things." Garth Brooks' ChatGPT said, Garth Brooks was already famous when his real life at home started falling apart. He married Sandy Mall on May 24, 1986. She was his college sweetheart, the one who had been there long before the fame, the tours, and the spotlight. But just 3 years into the marriage, things quietly began to change. In 1989, while the world saw him rising like a rocket in country music, Sandy was already seeing him disappear, sometimes for 5 or even 6 days straight. It wasn't just touring. She later revealed he was vanishing with other women. Over time, this became a pattern. Garth would be away, while Sandy stayed home raising their 3 daughters. Taylor was born in 1992, August in 1994, and Allie in 1996. While she was caring for their growing family, he was out chasing something else. She described him as someone who needed to prove he could have anyone he wanted. It wasn't just about love, it was about ego. In one of the most disturbing parts of the story, Garth openly admitted he was involved with 7 or 8 women at the same time. He even tried to make it sound poetic, saying that women gave him different sides of what it meant to feel alive. He said, "Women are neat. They are enticing." But nothing about it felt respectful or grounded. It felt like he was trying to justify what couldn't be justified. Then came Trisha Yearwood. She wasn't just another woman. She was the one he later called his real wife, even though he was still married to Sandy at the time. That was the breaking point. Sandy packed her bags and told him she had her plane ticket ready. Either things changed or she was leaving. Garth did stop, for a while. For 9 years, he pulled back. But some things, once broken, don't go back to the way they were. Their divorce became official on December 17, 2001. The settlement cost Garth $125 million. It became one of the most expensive divorces in country music history. But money wasn't the most shocking part. It was something he said afterward that left people stunned. He claimed that the woman he got back after cheating was 15 times the woman I had. And then added, "I'm not telling anybody to go screw around, but that's what happened to me." It sounded less like regret and more like a twisted way of saying he won. While he was touring for 8 to 10 weeks at a time, fans were clapping and cheering. But behind all that applause, Sandy Mall was living through betrayal after betrayal. She was raising their kids, watching her husband on stage, and carrying the truth of what he was doing off stage. George Jones. It looked like a fairy tale on the outside. George Jones and Tammy Wynette were country music royalty. Fans saw the hits, the duets, the smiles on stage. But behind the scenes, their love was a slow-burning disaster. They got married in 1969, but by the time it all ended in 1975, their story had turned into one of the darkest tales Nashville had ever seen. It wasn't just arguments or jealousy. It was bruises, fear, loaded guns, and a kind of pain that couldn't be hidden behind even the best makeup. At one point in 1975, everything exploded. George, completely drunk and out of control, grabbed his .30-30 rifle and chased Tammy through their Nashville mansion. She was running for her life while he fired real bullets. It got so bad, he had to be strapped into a straitjacket and sent to a hospital for 10 days. That wasn't the only time things got that bad. Everyone loves to laugh at the lawnmower story, the one where Tammy hid the car keys to stop George from driving drunk, and he rode a lawnmower 8 miles just to get more alcohol. But that wasn't funny to her. It was terrifying. That was her life. Tammy tried to keep up appearances. She had to use stage makeup to hide the bruises. Sometimes George would explode over the smallest things, like when he suspected she was cheating. Once, in a jealous fit, He threw her down the aisle of their tour bus like she was nothing. She filed for divorce in 1973, but went back to him. Then, in January 1975, she finally walked away for good. But leaving him didn't end the pain. 2 years later, in March 1977, George was given an injection he thought was just for energy. It turned out to be liquid cocaine. That moment sent him into an even worse addiction spiral. He couldn't stop. The drinking turned into drugs, and the damage just kept spreading. Even after they split, their lives stayed haunted. Tammy got involved with another man, George Ritchie, and people close to her started whispering that her death in 1998 wasn't as simple as it seemed. There were questions about Ritchie's control over her medicine, her money, even her body in her final years. The pain didn't stop when the music faded. It just changed form. Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash and June Carter looked like the perfect match, but their love started in the shadows. Back in 1962, Johnny was married to Vivian Liberto and had been since 1954. June was also married to Rip Nix since 1957, but that didn't stop them. That same year, June wrote the lyrics to Ring of Fire, pouring all her forbidden feelings for Johnny into the song. When he recorded it in 1963 and made it a #1 hit, he was still married. Vivian had to listen to her husband sing about his affair on the radio while pretending everything was fine. It got worse. In October 1965, Johnny was arrested in El Paso. Police found over 1,000 pills hidden in his guitar case. Photos of Johnny and Vivian hit the newspapers. Some people mistook Vivian for being black, and the Ku Klux Klan started sending threats. Concerts were canceled. Crowds turned. But the pain at home was worse. Vivian couldn't take the lies and the drugs anymore. In 1966, she filed for divorce. When she did, the Catholic Church kicked her out for ending her marriage. It was only years later when Johnny admitted in a letter to the church that the failure was all his, that they let her back in. What most people don't know is that June didn't wait quietly for Johnny. According to Vivian's own words, June once told her straight to her face, "Vivian, he will be mine." It wasn't just love, it was war. And when Johnny finally proposed, he didn't do it quietly. On February 22, 1968, during a concert in London, Ontario, in front of 7,000 people, he stopped the music and got down on one knee. He told June he wasn't singing another note until she gave him an answer. 8 days later, on March 1, 1968, they got married and turned their secret affair into a new public image. But the damage from those years never fully healed. Vivian had to rebuild her life after being publicly humiliated. Tammy spent years trying to escape the trauma that stayed with her even after George was gone. Hank Williams. Hank Williams was already a legend when he died on January 1, 1953. But what people didn't know was that just 5 days later, a daughter he never got to meet was born. Her name was Kathy Yvonne Stone. Her mother was Bobby Jett. And by the time Hank married his second wife, Billie Jean Eschliman, on October 18, 1952, Bobby was already 6 months pregnant. Hank knew it, and he didn't try to run. In a time when no one did this, Hank signed a legal document in 1952 giving himself full custody of the unborn child. He wanted to raise her. That paper was forgotten for over 30 years. But in 1984, it was found in Montgomery. That one page changed everything. The real heartbreak began after Hank's death. His mother Lillian stepped in and adopted the baby, changing her name. But when Lillian died in 1955, everything fell apart. Hank's sister, Irene Smith, ignored his wishes. She gave the baby away. No explanation, no apology, just gone. That decision went against the custody paper Hank had signed before he died. It was a betrayal not just of the girl, but of Hank himself. The little girl grew up not knowing who she really was. Decades passed before she began digging into the past. What followed was a brutal legal fight that lasted 9 years. Her name was Jet Williams now, and she didn't just take her case to one court. She went to probate court, circuit court, state Supreme Court, federal court in New York, appellate court, and even the U.S. Supreme Court. She stood face to face with her half-brother, Hank Williams Jr. in court. The fight wasn't just about money. It was about identity. It was about being acknowledged. In 1990, Jet finally won. The Alabama Supreme Court ruled in her favor, saying fraud had been used to hide who she really was. Now, she had the right to royalties from hits like Jambalaya and Your Cheatin' Heart. But the cost had been enormous. Jason Aldean. On September 30th, 2012, Jason Aldean was seen kissing a 24-year-old cheerleader named Brittany Kerr at a bar in West Hollywood. He was 35, wearing his wedding ring, and married to Jessica Usuri, the woman who had been with him since high school. Jessica wasn't just his wife. She was his business partner. She had handled his finances, answered his calls, and even appeared in his videos. She helped him build everything. His net worth was around $32.5 million when the scandal hit, and it shattered everything. Kerr later said she didn't know he was married, but the photos told a different story. Jason tried to apologize on Facebook, saying he drank too much and acted inappropriately. But people didn't buy it. Brittany deleted her Twitter after waves of hate came in, and Jessica stayed quiet. 7 months later, on April 26, 2013, Jason filed for divorce. He said it was due to irreconcilable differences, but the truth was already out there. By the time the papers were filed, he was already publicly dating Kerr. What hurt the most wasn't just the affair, it was how calculated everything felt. Jessica had helped him climb to the top. She helped him build an $80 million empire. And when he got there, she was cut out of the picture. Just like that. One scandal. One night. One photo. And a woman who had done everything for him was left to watch from the outside as her family, her work, and her world fell apart. Trace Adkins. Trace Adkins had been married to Rhonda for 16 years. They had 3 daughters and lived a mostly private life, at least until 2013. That March, everything came crashing down in the most public way possible. It started with a tweet. Victoria Pratt, a Canadian actress who met Trace on the set of The Virginian, posted a message saying she gave him a sponge bath at work. She called it the best job ever. People were stunned. This wasn't a private moment between 2 actors. This was a married man exchanging flirty tweets with another woman, right out in the open. Fans saw it. So did his wife, and it only got worse from there. Victoria wasn't just tweeting once. She became Trace's loudest supporter during his time on Celebrity Apprentice All-Stars. When he won in May 2013, she sent him a tweet calling him a handsome devil. He replied, calling her gorgeous and sending her a kiss. Rhonda didn't need to guess anymore. It wasn't just an affair. It was something deeper. Trace admitted to her that he had fallen in love with Victoria. He even compared their sexual experiences to fantasies he had long imagined. But that wasn't all. He confessed to cheating with nearly a dozen women during their marriage. He even bragged to friends that he once slept with 2 different women in one day, then came home to his wife like nothing happened. On top of all that, he claimed Omarosa had come on to him dozens of times while filming Celebrity Apprentice. He also said Carol Alt made moves on him too. After 12 years of sobriety, all this pressure and scandal led him back to drinking. Rhonda filed for divorce in March 2014, citing irreconcilable differences. It turned into a $20 million legal war. Years later, In October 2019, Trace married Victoria Pratt, Shania Twain. Shania Twain's story was just as painful, but in a completely different way. She had been married to Mutt Lange for 15 years. He was more than just her husband. He was her producer, the man behind her biggest hits. In 2008, at 43 years old, Shania found out that he had been cheating on her. But not with just anyone. He was having an affair with Marie-Anne Thibault. She wasn't just a friend. She was Shania's secretary, her house manager, her interpreter, her babysitter, and her closest confidant. Marie-Anne had lived in their Swiss mansion since 2000. The place had 46 rooms and sat on 61,000 acres. She helped raise Shania's son. They traveled together, celebrated holidays, and shared almost every part of their lives for 8 years. The betrayal was too much. Shania broke down. She said she felt like dying. She couldn't stop crying. She bathed 5 times a day just to cope. She emailed Marie-Anne, pleading with her to stop. She wrote that she didn't want life or love anymore. Her pain poured out in that message, begging for mercy, asking, "Why are you torturing me? Let it go. Please, see." In a twist no one expected, Shania later fell in love with the one person who truly understood her heartbreak. Frédéric Thibault, Marie-Anne's ex-husband. The two of them had both been betrayed by the same people. Their shared pain brought them together. They married on New Year's Day 2011 in Puerto Rico, just months after her divorce was finalized. Mutt never publicly admitted to the affair, but he stayed with Marie-Anne. Shania, meanwhile, only speaks to him now about their son. The rest is silence. Their story became one of the most heartbreaking betrayals in music history. Drama de Vernions. Everything seemed perfect in Sara Evans's life until 2006, when it all fell apart in the ugliest way possible. She wasn't just going through a divorce, she was stepping into one of the most public and explosive scandals country music had ever seen. The man she was leaving, Craig Shelsky, was hit with accusations so wild they barely sounded real. Her lawyer claimed he had over 100 nude photos of himself. Not just that, but also images of him in bed with multiple women, including their former nanny, Allison Clinton Lee. Her lawyer didn't hold back. He told People magazine they had proof for every word. It sounded like the final blow, but the fallout would only grow worse from there. Once those claims hit the press, things spiraled. Sara was ordered to pay more than $5 million in alimony over the next 10 years. But the damage didn't stop with the money. When the photos turned out not to exist, the people she had accused fought back with everything they had. Craig sued her lawyer for $20 million for slander. Allison, the nanny, filed a $3 million lawsuit against Sara for defamation. What was meant to be a clean break turned into a legal war that dragged on for nearly a decade. In 2009, Sara quietly paid Allison $500,000 to settle. And in 2011, her lawyer paid an undisclosed amount to Craig after a separate $10 million lawsuit. Even worse, the lawyer was forced to apologize publicly. He said he regretted that anything he did caused Craig harm. By then, Sara had already admitted she was mistaken about the photos. The damage was done, though. Careers were wrecked, reputations were shredded, and it still wasn't over. Craig came back swinging. He accused Sara of having affairs with Richard Marx, Kenny Chesney, her Dancing with the Stars partner Tony Dovolani, and even 4 or 5 members of the band Three Doors Down. He called it a betrayal that cut both ways. The custody fight over their kids kept dragging until 2014. There were restraining orders, drug exposure claims, and more lawsuits, including one tied to TMZ. It wasn't just a divorce anymore. It had become an all-out war. Leanne Rimes, on the other hand, didn't need courtrooms to make headlines. She tore two families apart in a single move during the filming of a TV movie called Northern Lights in late 2008. She was 27, married for 7 years to Dean Sherriman. But that didn't stop her from chasing Eddie Cibrian, who was also married at the time. It wasn't a slip-up. It was a cold, planned affair that played out in front of cameras and tabloids. Dean found out the worst way possible. Leanne called him and said, "Us Weekly may or may not have a picture of me and Eddie kissing." That was it. No warning. He had already seen the flirtation on set. Tight tank tops, jeans, boots, the way she played pool with Eddie. But now it was undeniable. The image burned into his memory, and so did the betrayal. She didn't just cheat on her husband. She blew up his entire world. Brandi Glanville, Eddie's wife, was just as devastated. She saw the photo of her husband and Leanne sucking on each other's fingers in Us Weekly. Then she collapsed in her closet and cried until she passed out. And still, Eddie denied everything. But Brandi didn't stay quiet. One day, she saw her 2-year-old son Jake sitting in Leanne's lap during a soccer game. That was it. She grabbed him and screamed at Leanne, threatening to kill her. The moment was raw. It was real. And it left a mark on everyone involved. Dean had been more than a husband. He was also Leanne's manager, her friend, her partner in every way. He was the one who had encouraged her to take the role that led to the affair. That made it all worse. Leanne later admitted she had done one of the most selfish things imaginable. But then she shrugged it off and said, "I don't regret the outcome." That outcome was the end of 2 marriages. By June 19, 2010, both divorces were finalized. The damage was permanent. Jana Kramer. 1 month into dating Mike Cosson in the summer of 2014, Jana Kramer found out he was cheating. It didn't even take 30 days. She was already in love, already hopeful, and the man she trusted was already sleeping with other women. Still, she married him in May 2015. Then their daughter Jolie was born in January 2016. For a while, it looked like they were finally building a real family. But underneath that image was something darker, something that never went away. Jana started noticing strange things. She wasn't imagining it. A friend told her to check the phone bill, so she did. She started calling numbers she didn't recognize. Each one took her deeper into a nightmare. When she was done, she had proof that Mike had slept with more than 13 women. And the timing couldn't have been more cruel. She found out just 20 minutes before she had to go on stage for a concert in Orlando. She had to stand there in front of a crowd and sing like her world wasn't falling apart. She never forgot how numb she felt. Mike said he had a sex addiction. He checked into a treatment center near Nashville in 2016 and stayed there for 60 days. He also started going through a 12-step recovery program, but the pain didn't stop. In 2018, he had what Jana called a massive relapse. He swore he hadn't slept with anyone that time, but trust was already gone. The lies had worn her down. The photo that pushed her over the edge wasn't even on his phone. It was on his Apple Watch, a topless woman. He deleted it from his phone, but forgot the watch. Jana broke. When she finally left, it wasn't quiet. She and her friends took a baseball bat to a custom pantry door he'd designed. They destroyed it. She smashed all of his Xbox consoles, even the ones he claimed were his only vice. She wrote on his tuxedo. That was the moment she stopped pretending to hold it together. That was when she let herself feel everything she'd buried. Randy Travis. Just like Jana, Randy Travis had a public image that hid something wild underneath, but his downfall hit like a car crash. Literally. On the night of August 7, 2012, Randy walked into a convenience store in Texas, completely naked. It was 11:18 p.m. He didn't have a wallet, but asked for 2 packs of cigarettes like it was nothing. The clerk stared in shock. Randy just walked out. Minutes later, he crashed his Pontiac Trans Am near Tioga. Police found him lying naked in the road, drunk, bleeding, and angry. His blood alcohol level was double the legal limit. His mugshot showed a black eye and cuts all over his face from the crash. But what happened next was worse than the crash itself. While officers were transporting him, Randy started yelling threats. He told one trooper he hoped cancer would spread through his body. Then he told another, "You're a dead man by tomorrow." Those words turned a drunk driving arrest into something far more serious. He was charged with felony retaliation. That single charge could have sent him to prison for 10 years. He had to post $2,100 in bond, $20,000 of it just for the felony. He ended up with 180 days in jail, probation, and court-ordered rehab. The full 3-hour police video didn't come out until 2017. His family begged the court to block it, but they lost. That August night wasn't even Randy's first alcohol-related arrest that year. In February, just months earlier, he had been found drunk outside a Baptist church with an open bottle of wine. By the time that video hit the internet, Randy's career had already taken a hit he would never recover from.